Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, May 27th. I do believe it is Memorial Day holiday today in the United States. So doesn't look like announcements are going to go out on YouTube, probably because of that, if I could guess. Let's see. Theoretically, and this probably won't happen, I would like to... Let's not play warrior cards, first of all. Reroll that. That leaves us with rogue, priest, and destroying minions. Okay. So do I want to lose my lead at 15, or do I want to end the month? Like, seriously, I could end the month on the 15th if I just play casual today on the main account. So we'll do that. We'll start with priest. Yep. Yeah, I started saying this is almost certainly not going to happen, but I did spend yesterday doing some prep work for a wish list clean, well, not wish list, but the follow list cleanup, and I figured I'd stream the recording of that yesterday. Didn't get around to it because there's just so much prep work that needs to be done, and then there's a decent amount of work that needs to be done anyways. So I'm thinking maybe I'll do that later today, since we're starting earlier today. And of course I'm just starting earlier because I woke up earlier. That's all it really is. So that is a possibility. I also wanted to apologize for at least one person on the last stream being false advertised to, misconstrued. I accidentally did not update the title to say Hearthstone and video game news in the last stream. It still said Hearthstone Rise of the Shadow solo adventure, and that person asked if I was going to do a solo adventure. I thought he was just asking in general. I didn't realize that I hadn't changed the title until later. So, honest mistake, I changed it once I realized that was the problem after the stream had ended. And yeah, it seems like we're gonna have a bit of a laid back experience already, just because we're doing it earlier in the morning, which is fine. We have a decent amount of news, but nothing huge or big. E3 is 16 days away, I believe. So from that, it seems that that we're still going to very much be in that silent section. I did find an interesting trick out, where I could install a plugin for open broadcast software, and then I can blur image sources or the screen in total, because when going through the follow list, there is a decent number of adult games, and Steam still has this issue, certainly, where it is allowing some screenshots, or it allowed for a brief time some screenshots, and hasn't retroactively fixed this to be not family friendly. And I've said several times that I feel like adult games on Steam are fine, but I think even if you click through to a page after being warned, you shouldn't probably be shown with hardcore imagery or even softcore imagery in the screenshots. There should be like a too hot for Steam type picture put on the top of it. And even in most instances that I've seen, that this is exactly how you would do it in old rental movie sections for adult movies, or I guess the internet has pretty much changed that, but if it's a premium internet porn sites, they usually don't show you everything, although they often will show a lot.
Now how about
the problem, as I've set it up, is I can have two scenes basically showing the same thing on OBS. One with a filter of blurring and one without. When I'm covering the tabs on Chrome, I am switching between tabs using the keyboard using Control Tab, which is just move forward to the next tab on Chrome. I can put that same keystroke as a shortcut to switch from the regular view to the blurred view. So then every single time I go to a new tab, without fail, or hopefully without fail at least, it would then bring up the screen blurred, and then I can set up in the same way I have the web peak, where I can just go off to the screen at certain points to let it through. I'm not sure I really want to bother with that though, because that is frankly not worth it, because you're talking for the entirety of the follow list cleanup. Even though there's probably 400 or 500 games that we'll be looking at, and 4 or 5 of them need to be blurred, so it's overkill. So I think, while that is the safest maneuver, I think what I'll do is I'll probably just have it where if I move the mouse over to the left, it will blur it, and if I move it over here, it will unblur it, and ignore the shortcut key that blurs everything by default. There is no great system here, not anything as close as if I was blurring it in post-production or something like that, being live. So yeah, something might slip through, but it'll be an extremely short frame or two. And so far as looking at games on these streams, I'm sure maybe something has slipped through in one of these streams, but it's been so insignificantly small and short, and I'm sure nobody's flagged it. Nobody would be that cruel to try and ruin my channel over such a thing. That,
now how about
yeah, I imagine that it wouldn't be a problem. And this is also an incident where it only makes sense to do blurring at all because there's no other video footage to show. You wouldn't blur the image if there was just even a standby screen or a different video. That this is where Hearthstone streams in particular work really well, is that I could be talking about all the games and just have the video showing Hearthstone the whole time if necessary. Speaking of which, I didn't really check, so let me just double check to make sure this works. Yep, that works. So there's a picture within a picture within a picture of,
let's see,
of OBS's software. I'm pretty sure there's nothing important there that I can't show. So, alright. With all that said, let's try to burn through the news and get at least 2 daily quests done. I don't know if I really want to try and get all 3 done on Monday, particularly Memorial Day, that is going to put a question mark on how many people are watching. Also, starting early might put a question mark on how many people are watching. So there's a lot there to question. So first news article we have from Gamatsu is No Heroes Allowed, No Puzzles Either is coming to PC in June 10th. This seems to be a game. If that first came out for the PS Vita in 2013, okay, so, and it's probably a pretty simplistic game, but I guess maybe there's something here that people liked, or maybe it is just we finally hit 100% conversion ratio on all Vita games and all mobile games coming to PC. We have so many cards that would need to be silenced. This is kind of ridiculous. Why do I have so many cards in my deck that need to be silenced? Next, we have a game on Steam called Ant Queen 3D. I don't think that there's anything here of any interest. I don't think I'd ever really want to play a game as an ant, even if it was a good game. I know that there was like a Pixar Ants, and then there was another Ant movie, but yeah, even those movies were pretty lame. I don't know why you'd want to be doing that. And this game wants $12.99. That is extremely expensive, and it's in early access for something that doesn't look interesting at all.
Is someone injured?
Your rage sustains me.
When I do get around to doing the wish list or fall list cleanup, I've come to the realization I'm gonna have to be somewhat crueler, and I think with what I'm looking at really is that this is going to be games that came out before the 1st or came out after the 1st of 2019, January 1st of 2019, and also if it came out past January 1st but has 20 reviews, then or more, I'd still want to look at it and consider it. But I feel like since there's been at least 6 months since I last looked at games, or at these games, my level of concern over quality has increased. My discretion, I suppose, has increased, might be the right phrase. So a lot of games are just not going to make it to the fall list, to the wish list, and it also opens up the door that yes, some games that weren't good enough in the past to be on the wish list, so I put them on the fall list because I didn't want to think about them. I might not want to think about them again and put them on the wish list, and there might be for a handful of games. I would suspect no more than 40. Some games that are just riding the line, and they'll just be really low quality games, relatively speaking, on the wish list, but enough quality that I still think I want to play it. But there's also going to be a lot of hard decisions because some of these games are going to be very old, because the fall list has not been cleaned up before, so this might be something from 2017 or 2015 that's just really old yet has no relevancy because it has less than 20 people that even bother to review it, which is really how I'm defining relevancy, which is not the greatest way to define it, certainly, but it's the best way I can think of to have any kind of system. And some games will just be overruled in general, and they'll just say, well, this still doesn't have any reviews, but I feel like I want to play it. Also, right now the spring cleaning event is happening on Steam, which is a weird kind of tricky thing they're doing, where there really aren't any games on sale. It's just your standard front page sales. So every week there's a couple games that are on sale on Steam. That's very normal and usual. But instead what they're doing is they're asking you to go back and play old games that you haven't played in the last 6 months, and they're asking you to try a few games that they're having a free weekend on, and I suppose it's a 3 or 4 day free period because it is a 4-day sale that is going over Memorial Day weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if this really is just an experiment to get people playing games in general over Memorial Day weekend, where I bet they see a lack of games being played. I also wouldn't be surprised if this is the blatant idea that that if we convince enough people to play old games and remove their Steam backlog in a small amount, maybe they'll buy more games.
Dead or alive.
For me, all it really seems like too is that they encouraged a lot of people to download games and install them and play them that people wouldn't have downloaded, installed, or played otherwise. And so they're probably just running up down bandwidth on their servers. But you get a badge if you do all of it. So I'm launching into games and then immediately exiting them and not playing them because I had no interest in playing them at this time. And I don't think it's strange for any gamer to not really want to be told which game to play. The reason why gamers in part have such large backlogs of games they haven't gotten around to playing is because they wouldn't in some small way feel led to listen to people telling them they need to play some of their old games. Also, I would say gamers in general are just flippant, prone to being hyped. Might be good examples. So they want to play the new shiny games, not the old games. So I can't imagine that the Steam spring cleaning event, I can't even really call it a sale, is the right way to go about something like what they're trying to achieve. I'm not sure what they're exactly trying to achieve, but I can't imagine it was super successful or it's going to be super successful. It really is a pathetic offer. Go out and have your already planned for Memorial Day weekend fun, or stay indoors playing old Steam games that you had no intention of playing. But yeah, I figured the correlation of the spring cleaning concept, though, would be a great time now. This would be a very good time to every year do a spring cleaning event, and then have that maybe re-airs pre-recorded videos in either November or December. That does, however, mean right now I have like 5 gigs of my 16 gigs of RAM, so thank goodness I have a lot of RAM. I have a lot of that being taken up by the Chrome browser with pages open. And unfortunately, Steam just logs me out a lot when you open a lot of pages. So it puts you in this weird position where either I'd have to log in on screen when I'm streaming, which I don't want to do because that would just be inefficient, or I'm going to have to use the notepad method that I've used in the past, where if I decide a game is not going to be on the follow list, then I'm just not going to put it on the follow list. I'm going to have to look it up again later and remove it, which is going to be a nightmare, frankly. But I don't see any other way to do this, because, well, what I could do is I guess I need to make the assumption that way more games on the fall list are not going to make it to the wish list and are going to be taken off. And if I can make that assumption, then I can just close any tab and put on the notepad all the ones that should go to the wish list, and then leave all the tabs open for things that are going to be removed from the fall list, and then off screen the tabs would still be open and I could log into them and try and remove them that way, and that might be a faster experience. Inherently what this means is that 3 or 4 hours of pre-work have been done on this, and potentially 3 or 4 hours of post-work will be done on it. Okay.
I just want some peace and quiet!
Feel my pain.
Let's see. I don't know why I did that. I'm trying to play cards. Yeah, because I didn't play Doom over the weekend, spent all day buying groceries basically, or not really all day buying groceries, it's just it is certainly hot already in the United States, and so by the time you've bought groceries and then brought them into the house, you've exhausted more energy than I care to spend in one day, or have to spend in one day, which is probably a ridiculously small amount of energy compared to a normal person. But one thing that sitting in a chair will always do is make you less physically capable. Right.
Your rage sustains me.
Feel my pain.
So yeah, I spent yesterday doing all the pre-work for the fall list cleanup, and the day before doing grocery shopping, so I haven't played any more of Doom, and it might be a while before I get back to Doom, which might affect my experience. When I started playing the Doom reboot, I was definitely having fun, but it does kind of feel like a pretty shallow experience in a lot of cases. Something that you're just gonna you're gonna quickly run through the story mode and then have to come to the point where you question whether it's worth playing the game on a harder difficulty a second time, or whether you want to try to play multiplayer when there's no multiplayer, or when you try to play arcade mode.
This will be a mercy killing.
Well, they managed to kill all of my cowards. So we have a article here from Komatsu. A Spice and Wolf, which is an anime, probably based on a manga, VR, is coming to the PS4, Switch, and Oculus Quest this summer. This seems like this is another example of a anime character being put in a simplistic VR game where you're just kind of hanging out with them and feeling like you're living with this person or hanging out with them. Let's see. Should be noted that some of the features game's interactive modes are limited to the PC, Oculus Go, and Switch versions. Interactive modes allows players to pet holos. I guess this fox girl is named Holo. I know that Spice and Wolf does have to do with fox characters. Pet Holo's head and tail as well to interact with items. So interactive mode doesn't even seem like it's as it's described here in Komatsu, and I don't think Komatsu would particularly be this coy about it. Doesn't even seem like it is focused around the typical groping interactive modes of a lot of these games, where the character will act embarrassed, shy, or angry if you grope them inappropriately. And I'm certainly not a fearmonger, but I am gonna have to question if a lot of these VR games come out, as far as people falling into fantasy, and even if you don't fall into fantasy, like, there's probably something to be said about. No, I guess it would be a facetious argument, wouldn't it, to say that video game violence leads to real world violence. We've seen that to be completely ridiculous argument that has been untrue for as long as it's been said. So video game groping probably does not lead to real groping. So if you want to embrace your inner desires in VR and pull the tail of a fox girl, then I guess I'm fine with that. And it all very much centers around people being able to tell the difference and separate fantasy from reality. And clearly there are some people that have trouble with that, but a normal human being shouldn't, a normal adult should not have trouble with that. Alright, so now we need to play as a rogue. And we may just get halfway through this daily quest and then move on. If we are going to move on, I need to start going through this news. In fact, just closing tabs will save me RAM. So next we have a game on Steam called Funarian Tactics 2. It looks like it's an RPG. It may not actually be an RPG Maker game, or it may be. In the end, I think it doesn't kind of matter. It's still the same highly zoomed out 8-bit RPG style game. It's early access for $8.99 discounted, and it's English and English subtitles only. So, yeah. I would also say that this character over here seems to have way too much going on, like angel wings with fox ears or cat ears, with a giant sword with what looks like a coat and a shirt, and then shorts, and then a fox tail. It's just like a lot of stuff going on there. So, trying too hard would be a good description. Next we have an article from Gamatsu. Sega Age's Wonder Boy in Monsterland launches May 30th in Japan. Sega Aegis might be what they call the Sega Genesis Master System collection of games that they seem to be releasing. Or it might be what they call it specifically on the Switch via the Nintendo eShop.
I don't have enough mana.
That would make some sense too.
Swiftly.
My greetings.
So, Monster Boy always seems like it's a second tier or even third tier game that kind of came out of nowhere. Let's see, I'm just gonna...
Justice is mine.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Marvelous announces a Bit Summit 7 sprites lineup. Travis Strikes Again and Sakuna of Rise of Rain. So I guess Bit Summit 7 Spirits is an event that happens at the Kyoto International Exhibition Hall in Miyako Messi. So I thought Bit Summit 7 Spirits lineup might be a soundtrack or anything, something like that. But showing off Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes is interesting, to say the least. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Do this. And then I can't do anything else.
Justice is mine.
So I may have wasted the coin. Let's see. Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes is not the hoped for and wished for No More Heroes that hasn't been announced. There is a continuation of No More Heroes 1 or 2. It is instead the mini 8-bit games that came out originally for the Switch, but is not actually the super good. There's a story later where they announce it coming out for the PS4 and the PC, and I'm a little surprised that they would think they'd get any more sales. And certainly they have kind of said that you need to buy Travis Strikes Again to help fund for the development of a No More Heroes 3, which is kind of just, in my opinion, is a threat more than anything else. It's taking hostage a game. that people want in making people buy a game that isn't of the quality that it should be.
Quest accepted.
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam, and I guess I really can't do anything about these games that are just all in Japanese or Asian characters, because I can't until I'm later down the road
I can see.
confirm whether they have English subtitles or not. This looks like this might be a Chinese visual novel, or it might be a Japanese visual novel with just a very strange animation style, because the animation style does look weird and out there. It looks like it would be a Western art style, but then it doesn't support English. So actually it's a Korean. Okay. Well, that might explain something. Then, yeah, if it doesn't seem Chinese or Japanese or Western, then I guess Korean would be the next guess when down the row as far as visual novels are. Oh, yeah, I guess if I look at this again, I should have known it wasn't Chinese because there's blood in it in the screenshot. So, yeah, that would definitely not
None can escape my fury.
fall within the censorship guidelines. Let's see. Next, we have an article from Gamatsu. The Fallen Angels Complete Edition has been announced for consoles and arcade. It's based on a 1998 released Psycho arcade fighting game. I do not recall ever seeing a game like this. Seems like it is a collection of weirdly costumed fighting guys. Let's see. It's generally believed that the original release of The Fallen Age was unfinished, with 4 unplayable character sprites discovered in the game's realm and several other indications of rushed development. The complete version will include the 4 unfinished characters, as well as all sorts of adjustments. Yeah, I severely suspect that that this is a scenario of an old game that was unfinished and not really popular, coming out in a somewhat more polished version. Have we really hit that point now where there's just enough room and enough content and enough development time that people can go around fixing old broken games nobody cares about? And we may have hit that point. Like, we very well may be entering a world where it's not all things are possible through technology, but it's a world where all things actually get done through technology. Just because if it just will take one passionate or crazy person or bored person to do or finish old games. Let's see.
Double time and double pay.
Let's see. I'm trying to find the cards. What would I want to play that I have a bunch of copies of? Because I had a bunch of copies of. This is very niche gaming related. Libretro, the emulating organization team, retweeted out this Meeping NES Realms Twitter account, where they have here's a preview of the next MU Palm OS emulator release. So somebody is making a Palm OS emulator to play, I guess, Palm games, but I don't know what you would really need to. This is like an 8-minute long video, so that's a
I wonder.
picture. If I could pause on that, here we go. Just nope, we're moving, opening more things. So here's what the Palm OS looked like. There was originally it was a black and white screen, but eventually they added color. There's a little pad with 4 buttons you would tap, and in one of these boxes here you would draw numbers, and one of these you would draw letters. And some of it wasn't that you would draw them the way they actually look, as much as you would draw them as some other special code. So you basically would have to learn a whole new language to write it. But for the people that did use Palm OS and loved Palm OS, they got pretty fast at it. And you could add new apps to the Palm OS, and they sold. And Palm OS came before Pocket PC, and all of these are pretty well forgotten technologies. So it's pretty much, in my opinion, more a historical reason that you would want to, a preservationist reason that you would want to use a Palm OS operated emulator, or even a Pocket PC emulator, because there really isn't any game worth having because of that. Do 4 damage instead.
Time's up.
Do
Let's
this. Do this. Oh, I could have played a coin and made 5 copies of that. Let's see. Next time.
Quickly.
I guess next time we will
Justice
do that.
is mine.
Tech Raptor has an article here. A rumor Ubisoft's Pass Premium leaked on the Ubisoft store. So what a Pass Premium could be, I assume it would be something close to, for a pretty large amount a month, annual, a large amount either monthly or annually, you would get an all access pass, or a mostly unlimited pass to Ubisoft games on Uplay. Although, again, it comes slightly questionable as far as what would need to be done to make Uplay a good offer, because it's not really a great offer right now. Yeah, that still wouldn't happen. Just wasted the coin for no
Time's
reason.
up. Let's do this.
Justice is mine.
Time's up. Let's do this.
In return. Yeah. With the exception of the Assassin's Creed games, which force you to use Uplay, I really can't think off the top of my head of any worthwhile Ubisoft games at all. And Ubisoft has been in this fight Ubisoft has just last year gotten out of the fight of being potentially taken over by Viacom, I believe, or Vivendi. Well, I never get the right name. So they've been fighting for their life for a very long time, and they haven't even in that time really made a lot of great games. Maybe they've been just so focused on doing profitable games that's all they could do. So let's, for time's sake, skip over to the European account now. If we have a lot of news, we'll come back and do some more rogue cards. So yeah, I cannot off the top of my head even think of other Ubisoft games. I probably could type in Ubisoft on Steam and then see a lot of games that I would be reminded are Ubisoft games. But yeah,
I can tell you'll have
that
some news
if I was
stories
gonna get a
tonight.
premium pass service, I would definitely get the Xbox Games Pass over anything else, because at least then you're getting a wide variety of games, or a wider variety of games from a wider variety of developers. Right, so Druid and Priest cards now are what we're trying to go for. So let's play Druid, and then the question is, do we want to... Yeah, at rank 18, I don't see any reason why we couldn't just play more ranked and try to get higher. Tech Raptor has an article here. Dauntless boasts over 4 million players in its first week. So apparently Dauntless is doing pretty well.
Malfurion versus Anduin.
Although
The light
I
shall bring
don't
victory.
recall
I must
even hearing
protect
anything
the wild.
about Dauntless that had come out or anything. So I guess it's surprising, but it's a free-to-play monster slaying MMO, so that could be why. A free-to-play Monster Hunter World style game would make some sense as far as their popularity, but yeah, I almost certainly forgot it as soon as I heard about it because it was free-to-play.
This be our neck of the woods.
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. The House in Fata Morgana, Dream of Revenants edition, has a trailer. It's due out May 28th for the PS Vita and June 11th for the PS4. I'm not sure if this is coming out. Is coming out to the West. Apparently, this console version is a completely rebuilt from the PC version, while the PC version ran at 800 by 600 resolution. The console version appears to support 4K. See, I'm pretty sure this is just a visual novel. So going from, yeah, it's tagged visual novel. Going from 800 by 600 to 400K base resolutions in a visual novel is probably a little easier than any other kind of game. Particularly if you have 8 or 12K sources of the images that you originally drew. But then I don't know why it would be originally 800 by 600 in the first place. And it feels like now the disparagement is the PC version, which now needs a remaster. And let's see. It is a visual novel tagged rated M, and that was by the ESRB too, so it is coming to the West. It's rated M for blood. Let's see. Blood and gore, intense violence, sexual themes, and strong language. So I want to watch this trailer to get an idea of what it is actually about. I suspect I kind of know that it's some kind of murder mystery, possibly a vampire story.
Soiled!
Got one. Got one.
For the wild. Job's done. Time waits for no one.
One thing I'd say about this is the animation style of these characters feels very different. They're very drawn out, lengthy looking characters. They look like they're from a someone trying to do a painting, like a Renaissance painting, more than anything else.
You love my new recipe.
So, a visual novel with a kind of unique art style might give it more of a value. That being said, when I do
For the wild.
the Steam follow list cleanup, I am going to have a lot of consideration and put a lot of thought into what, if any, visual novel should make it to the wish list. I think I'll probably be a 50-50 split there. I think some of them I'm going to say, no, this is not good enough, this is not relevant enough, I'm not really going to get around to playing 20 visual novels in my lifetime. But others I'm going to say, yeah, it's good enough, it looks interesting enough, if I'd like to own this even if I don't play it, or yeah, even if I never get around to playing it. Or I'd like to support this high quality game design over lesser quality. Yeah. So I think I probably also need to do some research here to see if the House of Fata Morgana, which I think I've been mispronouncing as the House of Fate Morgana.
The Earth Mother was busy.
Summon some more troops. Or treants.
Soiled!
Got one. Got one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see what the PC version looks like and is reviewed as on Steam. Gamatsu has an update for the Atelier Ryza. Has been announced for the PS4, Switch, and PC. Previously, it was just, this article just said that a new Atelier game has been teased, or a new game has been teased by the developers of the Atelier series, and they gave you this blurry image that's a screenshot from the video, and it's actually a pretty terrible screenshot from the video. I don't know why they wouldn't, in their press pass, have given them something better. But there's more details. So we do know it's now an Atelier game. And here you can see a much less blurry drawing of basically the same scene. And some more details. And it will be an RPG, of course. Let's see, it's coming out for the Switch and PC according to Famitsu. PS4 and Switch versions are due out. In Japan, a release for the PC has yet to be announced, according to their update. So, yeah. I'm definitely thinking about adding the Atelier series to my wish list, as it may just be the new Final Fantasy series, the new series that should be played if you're going to play any JRPGs, even over Final Fantasy. So, yep, it'll be on the wish list. I also feel like, and this might just be my feeling right now, is that the Steam Summer Sale, when it comes around this year, I don't feel like I'm going to be buying as many games. Like, it's been a year since the last one, and I've barely played a few of them, so it would be kind of silly to keep increasing my backlog.
Soiled!
Alright.
Nuts to you!
Back off!
So, yeah. I could see myself spending no money. I could see myself spending maybe $100. Maybe just $150. In the past, I know I've been catching up. I've been spending like $300. But it is also getting kind of hard to find anything even worth finding anything worth purchasing at all, as I have most of the good games on Steam already, or at least a significant amount of them. Next we have a game on Steam called Railroad Corporation. Early access game for $26.99 discounted. English, German, and Russian. Let's see.
Your magic shall not
Seems
save
like a railroad sim, and frankly it looks just too complicated and too much like a simulation for me to be interested in it. It looks pretty. It's just not the kind of game I think I'd want to play, because there is a level there where it doesn't feel like it will have much actual game in the game, and instead will just mostly be a simulation thing that is closer to a job. I also need to be real careful going forward about putting any game that doesn't have a release date on the wish list or the fall list, because I'm not gonna do it this cleanup, but next fall list cleanup I do, which is probably gonna be somewhere in December or maybe January. Anything after 2019 that said it was coming out in 2019 and didn't come out in 2019, or anything that just doesn't have a release date at all, needs to just be removed from the fall list completely. If it ever does come out, which is a big if for a lot of games, I'll hear about it again, almost certainly, if it's a good game. And if it, even if it did, I didn't hear about it and it was a good game, and then I didn't hear about it again, then it's just so unrelevant. Again, that phrase relevancy falls into the calculation. We're just not, it just doesn't matter. I have to embrace and realize that there very possibly will be scenarios where a game is actually good and still not not good enough or not recognized enough for it to be something worth mentioning. I do want to find hidden gems, certainly, but that I probably need to draw a line between hidden gems and I don't even know what you'd call them, buried a mile underground gems is the general concept I'm trying to put forward.
For the wild. Job's done.
one. Matsu has an article. Death Stranding news coming May 29th. So, yeah. It seems like they released a Cut the Rope teaser video that I didn't bother to watch. I don't think I'll probably spend much effort bothering to watch any of the more teaser videos. It's being developed for the PlayStation 4. So, it wouldn't be super surprising if it's not being developed for the PlayStation 4 anymore. It also wouldn't be super surprising if it still is. In fact, Kojima Productions, like Kojima is one of the most prevalent Japanese video game makers that has moved to Hollywood and become very Hollywood. Like, that's the reason why he's got all these he's got fancy Hollywood actors in his games. So he might be single-handedly the reason why Sony Interactive Entertainment moved their offices to California. I don't know if that really is the case. That seems like quite a big stretch. But yeah, I could also just see that there's no connection there whatsoever. That's more likely. But because he is basically working out of Hollywood, as far as I understand it, with Hollywood people and California people, he might still be in very good standing with Sony, whereas most other Japanese game developers are losing their faith in Sony and PlayStation. The only other thing, and the more likely thing as far as news, would be an announced date, a release date, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's it. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's just another trailer, just another tease, an announcement of some new actor or actress who's going to be in the game. The question in the air with Kojima was, can he actually finish a project, or is he just going to run this project into the ground? I wouldn't be surprised if he announced a Kickstarter and said he needed financial support or something like that. But yeah, I have no idea, and nobody seems to. I don't think anybody has any idea what Death Stranding really is, or if it actually is going to be a good game or not. And yeah, I imagine the right thing for him to do would be to announce a very close release date. If he came out on the 29th and said, and it's out now, that would be surprising, certainly, but it would be good just to have it be released. But also releasing it on the 29th would put it as an announcement right before E3, which kind of seems like what he's trying to do, regardless of the reason for that.
Got one. Got one.
But I suppose this is an article of an announcement, so there's nothing to really act on. So we'll just have to wait and see for 2 days. Depending on how this article goes, we may have to roll back our countdown days since we last had to talk about Gearbox's CEO. And I imagine, I don't know how this doesn't end in some kind of nightmare scenario. But we have an article here from TechRaptor. Gearbox exec John Vignocchi leaves the studio. Now, this isn't unheard of. It's a little weird that he's leaving before the release of Borderlands 3, but Borderlands 3 is effectively done, so it's not unheard of for an exec to leave after a major project has been finished. The only thing that makes this seem even a little weird is the fact that this is Gearbox we're talking about. Every Gearbox story we've heard over the past several months has been surrounded by their CEO doing something horrible.
Is someone
Let's say the article starts: over the weekend, Gearbox executive producer John Vignocchi announced that he was leaving the studio after less than a year at the company. Vignocchi made the announcement on his personal Twitter page, where he stated he was leaving Gearbox for an absolute dream job in my favorite company in the game industry. He continued adding, quote, "Working at Gearbox has been an amazing experience and I love that. Steve Gibson and Randy Pitchford, we mentioned them, but it seems like in good terms really know how to bring out the passion and excellence of an amazing devs that work here. I know everyone at Gearbox will continue their mission to, quote, entertain the world, end quote, with great success." So that this is a quote where somebody is quoting somebody else, which is weird, because then the second quote is not attributed to who's actually said that. "I've got nothing but love and respect for everyone there. Thanks for treating me like a family." So
Time waits for no one.
So he's moving to a bit different company. It is also not unheard of for a person to get a better job offer as soon as they get a better they get a different job. How do I say this? Describe it better. It's not unheard of for people to pad out their resume or work for a year while at one company while still filing applications or let's see. John Vignocchi worked at Disney's Interactive Studios from 2009 to 2016, but he was let go when Disney shut down the studio, so it's pretty much Gearbox. And this is the cronyism of working in the video game industry in a nutshell. Is Gearbox gave this guy who was laid off a job immediately, or relatively close to immediately after he was laid off. Well, I guess not. I guess there was a couple of years between 2016 and 2018 when he would have been hired. But yeah, seems like he just padded out his resume. And I wouldn't be surprised if Vignocchi was at a lower title or a lower pay amount at Disney, and he was able to leverage a higher title or higher pay amount at Gearbox, which then let him leverage working another job. I'm trying to think if I know who John Vignocchi is, because I'm pretty sure I've seen him at the Giant Bomb E3 meetups that they do. So, yeah. So if he's the guy I'm thinking of, I think he might have been the guy in charge of Disney Interactive Studios. Now, I don't know if you can really blame him for why Disney Interactive Studios was shut down, but I think that there probably is a lack. If it's the guy I'm thinking of, there's probably a lack of communication and proper communication skills in particular that would cause the CEO of Disney not have great faith or great desire to see
Back off!
A minion with taunt is in the way.
see it succeed
Back
as
off!
a division under Disney. Like, there really is no good reason why Disney Interactive Studios was shut down. Really shouldn't have been. We can say something nice about Randy Pitchford today, though. He retweeted it. He goes, "Love you, JV. You're in it for all the right reasons. Absolutely rock the new gig. Our industry needs more like you." So, at least on the surface, there's no big fight, no big accusations or anything like this.
You have been.
TechRaptor is guessing that he might be working for Nintendo or Gearbox. See, I want to do some research here. Let's do some actual journalism. And John Vignocchi images. Okay, it's not the guy I was thinking of. So yeah, here's a picture of John Vignocchi. I don't recognize this character. I may have seen him once or twice, but yeah, he does not strike me. He's not the guy I was thinking of. I was thinking of someone else that worked for Disney Interactive. So yeah, if anyone were to go, I guess we're still playing Druid cards. If anyone were to go to Nintendo, particularly Nintendo of America, which is what they're talking about, because of course no foreigner is really going to be welcome working at Nintendo of Japan. Let's just face it.
I must protect the wild.
But yeah, if he was to go to Nintendo, he would never be heard of again, really, and at best he would stand on stage and announce Nintendo games. If he goes and works at Valve, which wasn't even one that was speculated on, he would disappear again. When you're leaving Gearbox, you might be going to 2K. It would be a nightmare to move to Activision Blizzard unless he's now going to be the CEO of Activision and turn things around and thinks he can really do that. So my money would be on he's moving to 2K, which would make sense. Or I wouldn't be surprised if it was THQ Nordic, but I doubt it because that's in Sweden. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually going over to Rooster Teeth Games. I wouldn't be surprised if the voice actor of Claptrap that works at Rooster Teeth has enough influence or suggestion to convince more people to move over to that.
Well played.
The Ruby games, RWBY, are from Rooster Teeth Games, and so games from Rooster Teeth Games in general are kind of up in the air, because, not to confuse the two words, the Vic Mignogna scenario is also somewhat around the Rooster Teeth Games issue, and I think there might be some other drama. I guess I just need to go and look up like the Encyclopedia Dramatica on Rooster Teeth to see if I want to step in a landmine and potentially play the Ruby video games. Because personally I would, but if also they do DMCAs, and that is my main concern, is that if they're one of the companies that would do DMCAs, if they didn't like what I said about their games, then I should just blacklist them as a company and not cover their games. Moving on, that was not a bad story when Gearbox was involved. GameIndustry.biz has an article, Trade Groups Decry the Gaming Disorder Classifications. 6 industry associations from around the world say evidence of the condition is, quote, not sufficiently, quote, is not, quote, sufficiently robust, because it just doesn't exist. I mean, I don't think we have to get into minutia here. Gaming disorder, whatever you want to call it, does not exist. You can't just make it up, because I assume countries like China are pressuring the World Health Organization to make it up as a disease. If you haven't heard my rant about this, stick around, subscribe, click the notification bell. I'm sure you'll eventually hear my rant about the whole World Health Organization. But it seems like starting in 2020, because they have approved it, no, it's January 1st, 2022, is when this when this definition will go into effect. And so there's possibly ways that people could pressure, or the industry can pressure people to not implement this classification, but it seems like this is the way they're going. Let's see. It's from the organizations that are not happy about this are the ESA in the US, the the Entertainment Software Association of Canada, which is the ESA of Canada, the Interactive Game and Entertainment Association of Australia and New Zealand, the Interactive Software Foundation of Europe, K Games, which represents South Korea, and the Association for UK Interactive Entertainment. Have all asked the World Health Organization to examine it at an early date into what is called the ICD-11, which is their definition of diseases, whereas the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, known as the DSM, is the more standard one that people in the United States, medical professionals in the United States, even mental professionals in the United States would follow. So the World Health Organization's definitions aren't even that important on a case-by-case patient-to-doctor relationship, I don't think. Not in the United States, at least. But the problem is the World Health Organization has the air of authority, and it will... people will use that air of authority for nefarious means, almost definitely. Let's see. Load up the next page. I'm a little surprised my browser's even working right now with all the tabs opened. And I disabled my suspender plugin, so they are, I believe, actually open tabs. TechRaptor has an article, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night publisher shares post-launch plans. Now, there was a problem with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night when it was first shown, and people did not like the graphics, and they give them feedback for this. But sharing post-launch plans seems like, to me, it might be dangerously getting close to feature creep and never actually finishing your project, or promising that you'll do more. Let's see. Stretch goals will come after the final release. This was a Kickstarted game. Include free content upgrade for all game owners, not just backers. Right now, the developers are working on a day one patch that will include both boss rush and speedrun mode, as well as a pure Miriam outfit. Let's see. First DLC. I have to play. First DLC for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night will be Iga's Backpack, which will launch June 18th and include a backer exclusive content for $9.99. The DLC was only developed after a survey made by the publisher with a community fan approved the exclusive content DLC being sold to other buyers and players. The DLC allows players to fight the game's creator, Koji Igarashi, thereby earning the powerful sword whip weapon upon defeating him. So that seems like that's a small boss fight.
This be our neck of the woods.
Let's see.
Hey, catch!
That minion already attacked. For the wild.
Nuts to you!
Job's done.
Let's see.
My hand is full.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're promising too much, and this article goes on to talk about how there's limited edition steel cases that they're having trouble delivering and fulfilling, or they fulfilled in a slightly controversial way. Because they asked for more money for the steel cases to backers. The main thing I would say to take from this, though, is right now Bloodstained Ritual of the Night has just potential and nothing more than potential to be a good game, as a concept of the spiritual continuation of
Job's done.
of the Castlevania series. If it turns out that it's super short, or it's just not good, or it has some other problems, Bloodstained Ritual Night still could be a major disappointment, and any bit of DLC or extra content isn't going to really fix the base game if the base game's bad.
What shall we hunt?
So yeah, that's what I would take from it, and
For the wilds.
I would just be careful, particularly with how Bloodstained has been kind of delayed. But it's not untypical for a Japanese developer to delay their game several times. So that might just be the new thing that people get used to. I would be fine, frankly, if we got to a scenario where a lot of games, or almost all games, are always delayed a couple of times, and people just realize that that's the way it's going to go. But in exchange for that, that means less microtransactions, less loot boxes, less shady business practices. I don't know how the two would equate, because it's kind of the exact opposite. The longer it takes you to develop something, the more money you need to make to recap it.
The Earth Mother was busy.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Constructor Plus, which looks like a city simulation building game. It looks a little zoomed in, kind of like a mobile game. It seems like it's also kind of all over the place, where, like, and this trailer doesn't explain a lot. You see a game of an assassin shooting somebody for no reason, and then the trailer jumps to a completely different thing. So it seems like there might be a real-time strategy built into this. They say it's a definitive building simulation for a modern-day tycoon. $19.99. Bunch of languages supported, 34 achievements. Yeah, I just don't see myself wanting to play any more building simulation games. Okay, I'll give it a chance, so I'll put it on the fall list. Maybe I'll feel about this differently in 6 months, because there definitely is something different about this game. It's not just a straight up simulation game. We need a SimCity clone. We need to play the priest. Next, we have an article from TechRaptor. Doom Sigil mod finally releases on May 31st.
Anduin versus Rexar.
Yep.
Let the hunt begin.
So
Light shall bring
finally,
victory.
this John Romero built Doom mod, following the 25th anniversary of the game that would have been in 2018. Finally, this game is supposed to come out after being delayed at least 4 times. And yeah, it, by all screenshots, looks to be like it will still be based on the original Doom engine, so basically I can't play it because that would just make me motion sick. And I'm not sure that you really need to play it anyways. If it's just going to be a new mod or even just a new collection of levels, I'm not sure what makes it a mod even in this instance. What new programming or features are being added versus it just being a collection of level information. Gamasutra has an article here. The Epic Games Store exceeded THQ's Nordics expectations, says the CEO. This is a statement that was put out in response after a spokesman said that the Metro Exodus sales by far were way better on the console than it was on PC. So they're trying to say they're correcting the record. Most people are taking it as Epic called THQ Nordic and said, hey, it sounds like you're saying you were disappointed by our sales,
Consider.
and that sounds mean. Please don't say that. Please correct the record so it looks like our Epic Store did a lot better than they did. And even in their response to correct the record, you can cynically look at that and say, well, their expectations may have been 0, so if they got 1 sale, they may be just happy with that 1 sale. Which I kind of feel like that's probably the case. As I am getting the feeling for it, when somebody sells a game on the Epic Store, it feels like they're getting the first 6 months of sales paid to them in a bulk check of what Epic says they expect to pay to make in the first 6 months. And then if, in this case, Metro Exodus undersales, Epic is taking a loss there and just paying a early payment. So to run the math here quickly, if simplistically speaking they expected to sell 100 copies of Metro Exodus in the first 6 months, then Epic is giving them a check day 1 for 100 copies. If they only sold 50 copies, then Epic is not sending any more checks until another 51 copies have been sold. So
Is someone injured?
I imagine this is a simplified number, certainly, but yes, if they paid them a check for 100 units and they sold 101 units, the next check they will get would be for 1 unit after the initial one. I heavily suspect that's how it's doing. And so you can very cynically say, well, obviously the expectations were to sell that original 100 units on the Epic Store, and we sold 101, so it exceeded our expectations. Of course, I'm saying 100 units when in reality it probably is closer to 100,000, if not 200,000 units. If they came out and gave some real numbers and said they had made 300,000 units sold on the Epic Store, that would sound like a pretty successful sale, but they're not saying those numbers, and when people are not saying the numbers, you kind of have to assume that they weren't impressively high.
Is someone injured?
Play this.
Embrace the void.
Job's done.
Remember, all we need to do is play prescripts. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dream Eater, which is already mixed. It is a low-effort asset flip game where there's a bunch of, looks like Chinese girls that have been 3D scanned, although their bodies seem to have been digitally augmented. These are very large busts, and you've got to point something out here. When looking at this thumbnail, you've got every character I saw on the screenshots had big busts. I can't tell here. So it's the same body type, super thin hips, super large bust, or hip to, well, super thin waist to super wide hips, I guess. I'm saying that backwards. Her head is incredibly small in this, too, and her arms are actually incredibly long. The proportions are all over the place. Legs are really long, too. But if you look just at the faces, you've got black hair with a certain hairstyle, and then red lipstick, black hair with a different hairstyle, red lipstick. There's slight variations in in the faces, but barely anything here. This is hardly the way to make a game, particularly since this is tag sexual content and nudity, and they're calling it an RPG, and totally it isn't. This is a low-effort Chinese game, if I ever saw it. But yeah, you're not getting any redheads, you're not getting any blondes, you're not getting any wigs, any wild style hair colors, or different races, or just a lack of variety in total with what's being presented. That's kind of boring, and you're really selling yourself to only people who have interest in that one character style. Dream Eater is $4.99, and it's in English and simplified Chinese. It's totally not worth buying. But I feel like a lot of people who make these types of games, these low effort adult games, fail to really get past their own fetishes, their own personal preferences, and that certainly causes a problem as far as the quality of your work, because you just want variety, and that's outside of adult games too. Lara Croft, the most recent Tomb Raider games, fails, I think, to bring in other characters of any interest.
Right away.
Himiko, I believe was her name, from the first game,
Right away.
as a character, is barely in that first game. All the other characters in the first game, you see them at the very beginning, and then you don't see them until near the middle of the game, and then you kind of ignore them and don't see them again, except for sitting around the base camp for the rest of the game. Whereas there definitely should be more characters. And I would say Indiana Jones, and let's face it, Tomb Raider is just a ripoff of Indiana Jones, did this better. Steven Spielberg did it better, because every single Indiana Jones movie has a secondary sidekick character that is in the on the screen with Indiana Jones at some time, and there is a different female lead that I don't believe was intentional, but it's how it happened in the different movies. Let's see.
I can't do that.
Heal this and draw 2 cards. Destroy that. Hit that.
Right away.
That.
Right away.
And that. So yeah, I think that the Tomb Raider games, and a lot of the games, frankly, could have different characters and different variety there. Halo's a great example of there not being a lot of variety in the different characters, or you're just playing as Master Chief and then a bunch of aliens. And I guess that is in part why RPGs are a little bit more popular in Japan, is because Japanese people tend to be about wanting to see lots of different characters and variety. And if you want to have lots of different characters and variety, then you need to have some kind of team working together, and then that has a tendency to be a RPG game. But I think particularly for adult games, yeah, you have to go for a lot of variety.
Tremble before the might yells.
The light shall bring victory.
Moving on, Gamasutra has an article, and I think this is slightly clearing up my confusion. with the difference between Microsoft's, what is it, Azure and xCloud. It says 13 data centers in key game dev areas now support xCloud. I was also listening to Major Nelson, who this podcast, and he also said that xCloud was in 13 data centers. So what best I can tell is the xCloud streaming service is a video game streaming service that is built on the back of Azure, which is a more open-ended internet server service that just has plugins, I guess, for xCloud. And xCloud in general could or might not be the same service that allows mobile games and Nintendo games to log into the Xbox servers and get like friends list and chat and things like that. And yeah, from Major Nelson's podcast, it seems like it's still early days for xCloud. They're making they make it out like a decent amount of progress has been made, but I think we won't start to see any games actually using xCloud or saying that they're even using xCloud for quite a while, 3-4 years, definitely next generation. Yeah. Next we have a game on Steam called Clean VR, which seems like a VR game where you are supposed to be cleaning up a house. Yeah. Which, again, that's not a game, that's a job. That's acting as a maid or an organizer. This is clearly a low effort asset flip VR game. It's free, and I guess if your OCD in your house is already clean, it might be helpful, but I don't think so. Even at that instance, if you do suffer from OCD, that's about being organized and clean, I don't think it would really help you, and it would, at worst, it might make you worse. So, and anybody who doesn't suffer from that should have some self-respect and not want to clean in VR, even for free. There are much better games out there to play, even VR games. Yep. Next we have a game in Steam called Alice in Cyber City, which looks like a low-effort asset flip game with dark screenshot syndrome. I see no characters. I see no description of how this game would be played. It says it's a free-to-play adventure RPG. It's probably just a demo walking simulator more than anything else. It looks terrible. One thing I kind of do realize when looking at the cleanup and thinking about doing the fall list cleanup is that, yeah, the vast majority of games are very much not they're not good quality. There's a lot of bad games that come out on a weekly basis on Steam. But I don't know what fixes that, if anything. I don't know if there is a cure that is worse than the symptoms. I think it would be an interesting experiment if they raised the price of the Steam Direct to $200, but I kind of don't imagine it would change too much. Next, we have a game on Steam called Day 40. It's a asset flip dark screenshot syndrome first-person shooter. If every screenshot was well lit, I might be willing to give this a chance, but it just isn't. And inherently, that kind of means that I'm not willing to play games where you play in the dark the whole time. This is $10.99 with no discount. It's English and Chinese. No surprise there. Let's see if we can burn through this. Because I have a bunch of suspended tabs, so I really have no idea how many things are left, but frankly, I'm gonna probably just leave a lot of news on the cutting room floor today and call it an early day. Heck. At this rate, I might actually just go back to sleep and sleep the day away. Gamma Sutra has an article, get a job, Disbelief is hiring a senior programmer. That's in Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Chicago, Illinois. I think we've seen this job several times at this point.
A mistake.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Parkour Assault, which looks like an asset flip first-person shooter game. What's funny is it doesn't seem like this hand ever moves out of the way, so it's covering a considerable amount of the screen. Yeah. So, even in games where you should be holding a gun like that, I think most of the times you're not holding a gun like this. This game is 99 cents, English only. Obviously nothing quality there. Need to just play more priest cards. Next, we have a game on Steam, Quest for the War-Torn Brotherhood, which looks not like an RPG Maker, unless this is a newer version of RPG Maker games, but it does still kind of look like a low-effort RPG. And the thing that makes it look worse is this thumbnail in particular. Otherwise, I might have given this a chance, but it's $1.19 discounted, English only, so yeah, it's just lacking in polish. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article, Arcade Love plus Pingu coming to the Switch on August 22nd in Japan, so a arcade game is coming to the Switch both physically and digitally. Apparently it was on Steam already, so it's on Steam, and yet it has no reviews, and
I must consider.
Has 3 reviews, and it came out June 2018. So the game really has some relevancy issues. Apparently it's a collection of mini games, which that makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to bend over backwards to think of a way I could possibly justify playing this game, but there really is no way. And we have far past the point where a game coming out on the Switch is something worth mentioning, or something that would possibly allow me to justify playing a game on
Right away.
the PC. Like, I had hoped that games coming to the Switch from PC versions would give me an excuse to play those games, but it really hasn't. I have like the same tabs open over and over again. Gamatsu has an article here. Pokemon Press Conference 2019 set for May 28th. Pokemon Direct set for June 5th. This will clearly just be talking about new Pokemon games, and that's pretty much it. I imagine new Pokemon games with maybe a small mention of the Pokemon Go updates or something like that. I doubt they'll announce any third game in the series or third tentpole game. They'll just have Pokemon Go Walking, and they'll have Pokemon Shield and Sword, the RPG. Unless they want to really make a Pokemon Shield and Sword Let's Go version, which I don't think they want to do that. That would be too fast, too early. If they wanted to make a Let's Go game, they should make a Let's Go game based off of whatever the next generation of Pokemon Yellow would have been. Which I don't even know what that would be.
Is someone injured?
Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Ubisoft's new IP Roller Champions leaked ahead of E3 2019.
Let's crash this party.
I assume what this is a roller derby game where people roll around in circles and try to knock each other over. They're supposed to also pass like the leaders. It was a predecessor to fake wrestling in a lot of ways. Roller derby was. As a game, I don't know how interesting this would be, frankly. Yeah, it seems like there's going to be a leader who has the ball, and then a team that's going to try and pass the leader or take the ball from them. I don't know how interesting or fun that game would be, though. That seems like it going in circles in general is not a good feeling. So if it does get announced, I'd be interested to see if people heavily embrace it. I doubt they would.
This might hurt. Smash!
TechRaptor has an article here. Star Ocean First Departure R sets sail for the PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. So it's a new Star Ocean game, which I'm fairly certain there hasn't been a new Star Ocean game in a long time. Unless this is the first Star Ocean game. Well, back in 2017 they released a 4K remaster of Star Ocean The Last Hope. I guess maybe I just need to see what the Star Ocean games look like on Steam and see if there's a PC versions that are worth playing. That might just be another gap in my knowledge as far as Japanese JRPGs. It's a little repetitive to say Japanese JRPGs. Oh, someone friended me on Steam, and I don't know if they'll ever hear this, and they said, hey, Jalopy is free on the Humble Bundle. I wanted to point out that the Humble Bundle store unfortunately has changed their policy on giving away free games, or at least they seem to be inconsistent now. They used to give away free Steam codes for games. Now they're only giving away the game and then asking for $1 to get the Steam code. So I got it on the Humble Bundle, but it's not on my Steam store, which effectively means it's not there. I don't own it, because if I don't own it on Steam, I'll just never remember it exists. So yes, that game is going to stay on my wish list. It is not a high tier or interesting game. If anything, there is a decent chance that I will remove it from my wish list by the time I get before I get around to actually purchasing it. And yeah, that is going to be the case, I guess, going forward for a lot of
I don't have enough mana.
a lot of things. So I'm gonna just be gracious and nice if somebody says, hey, this game is on the Humble store for free, but yeah, it's no longer a source to get free Steam codes. That being said, if I remember that I own it on Steam, and well, I own it on the Humble Bundle store is what I meant to say, then maybe I'll spend $1 to get the Steam code. I can do that, I think, at my leisure. I don't think there's any point where that stops being a viable option. So it may be a lot cheaper to buy Jalopy for $1 on the Humble Bundle store than it is to buy it on sale on the Steam sale. So I'll have to consider that too. But that certainly opens the door to a lot more confusion than just manipulation of where to buy things, which is not really what most people want to do. Like, you don't want to have to go to 5 different stores to buy one thing when the same thing is available at 5 different stores. This is where Walmart succeeded greatly, is that even though Walmart prices are about 50% of the time better than other stores, they're also 50% of the time worse than other stores. They've got it down to a science where it's just not worth it to buy half of your groceries at a Walmart, or half of your shopping in general at a Walmart, and then go to 1 or 2 other stores to get better deals. Let's see.
Is someone injured?
TechRaptor has an article here. Hack and slash fantasy adventure Warlander is delayed to next year. I haven't really been paying attention or heard anything about Warlander, so it being delayed doesn't really mean anything. And see, most articles talking about a game about to come out, I would classify as a hype article. When you're talking about a game being delayed, you're still kind of hyping. It's just like a negative anti-hype article. It's like, get a little less hyped about this game, but don't lose all your hype about this game. Just lose some of it because it's slightly delayed. It's ridiculous. And I'd really prefer if all my news sources only talked about games when they released it, they announced the release date, and then when they were released in the form of a review. We don't need 5 different articles talking about a game before it came out. It comes out. Gamatsu has an article here. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes is coming to the PS4 and PC. I might get this on Steam. This was the big announcement that they teased, which is not a great announcement, quite frankly. It says Steam here, so if it became an Epic Store exclusive, that would kind of suck. But I definitely would want to see how it plays, particularly since it was kind of a small time game in the first place. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't run well on PC. TechCrafter has an article here. You know Western localization to have changes on consoles, which is to say changes on the PlayStation 4, I think. Releases for the Nintendo Switch and PS4 will both have separate exclusive day one pre-order bonuses. For the Switch, there will be a code for the game's 8-bit You-Know's Great Adventure, a classically styled action game featuring the character cast from You-Know. I don't know what this is. It's an adventure visual novel game by default from Spike Chunsoft.
I must consider.
So, you're getting this code for an 8-bit game here is what you get for the Switch. For those who prefer to play on the PlayStation, the Day 1 edition instead comes with its own exclusive, a mini cloth poster featuring Erika Tada, the fan favorite characters, one of the fan favorite characters. The final design for the poster has not been revealed, and the image released on You-Know's Western release website is a sample mock-up with no pre-order details. Now, here's their sample, which is basically an upskirt shot of this character, and I think this is probably a joke in there, because I don't think PlayStation in the West would allow that. But this game is rated M, so this is an adult visual novel, for lack of a better term. You-Know was first released in 1996 for PC and later ported to several consoles. This is a remastered version of that. And I guess the thing to check here would be to see how well the game was received on PC and Steam, since it seems like it is on Steam. So let's see if we can do a search. I guess I have to type in Steam because it's not coming up as the first few results. Oh, it's not available on Steam yet. It's coming out October 1st in 4 months. Or at least the remastered version is. And yeah, as a visual novel, it looks kind of fine. It actually looks like it might be a little bit more of a adventure game than just a standard adventure visual novel anyways. So do I put this on the fall list because it says it's coming out in October? I don't think I do. I think I'd just wait. Just wait till it actually releases. I'm sure I'll hear more about it. These cards that I have literally don't feel like they are designed to work at all. It just feels like a terrible deck I'm playing. The win to loss ratio seems to agree. TechRaptor has an article here. China's gaming authority now requires a business plan for game releases, which in a weird way is probably a smart idea, but it is also basically asking you to hand over your corporate secrets, because your business plan would be in a lot of ways your #1 corporate secret But in the other way, it is almost an interesting thing to say that we're only going to let you do business if you prove you know how to do business. But then it also opens the door to the idea that they could reject people from having business or making money if the Chinese government doesn't like that person. And inherently this just opens the door for less free speech and more civilian control. Let's see. Let's see.
Is someone injured?
So, business plan might be a little bit of a odd way to describe what they're asking for too, according to this article. If we look here, it says all submissions must include revenue approximation, the game's release date with a user base history and changes, social perception on the game, and a full script. So that doesn't strike me as a full business plan, but it does certainly seem like it's more information than they probably need for their job. Like, they really don't need to know a guess on how much money it will be. They do kind of need to know the release date, but they don't need to really know the user base history or changes, unless the changes would affect the game being approved based on whether it was rated one way or another. But they don't even have a rating system. It's just approved or not approved as far as I understand it. Let's skip over to the Asian account, and it's taking a little bit longer to do the daily quest than I thought it would, but we're also kind of done with the news. So yeah, that doesn't seem like it's a full business plan, but it does seem like it is definitely
Oh, come in. There's all sorts of shenanigans afoot.
Yeah. See, it seems like more information than you really should have to submit just to let your game be sold. I can't reroll any of these. So just try and win 2 games at any cost and use the hero power a lot. So Paladin, ranked, play. LibRetro put out a blog called Goodbye FB Alpha, Welcome FB Neo. We kind of mentioned this before.
Uther versus Geralt.
It starts, due to a controversy, all devs bar 1 from Final Burn Alpha moved to a new fork called Final Burn Neo. The controversy is hyperlinked and quoted. If you're using Final Burn Alpha Core, we recommend move to Final Burn Neo Core by updating your core list and info files, is the short of it. And in the end, they'll continue to work on support and such like this. This doesn't even seem like this is much of a blog. They've kept it short and sweet, and they're talking about their new support and things they plan on doing in Final Burn Neo, but they've moved the controversy to its own link. And then the link just took it straight to a Google search of Capcom Home Arcade illegal, and it brings up a whole bunch of articles and videos, this is the two fight sticks connected together Capcom games using Final Burn Alpha, probably illegally. So yeah, there's
Uther versus Gul'dan.
there's probably a lot more to the story than what a Google search will just return, but also I kind of don't care very much. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Like, and that probably doesn't mean a lot to people unless you're running emulators, and the number of people doing that is still not as high. I would say that the NES Classic and the Super NES Classic and all the clones of the NES Classic that came out did, for a brief time, maybe a year, get people interested in playing old games. But then they kind of immediately forgot about that and went back to playing new games. I would say last year and this year too would have been a great year to get back into playing older games, since there haven't been a lot of great new games, AAA games in particular.
I smell blood.
But one thing to consider is just how long or how entertaining it is to play an old game. I was watching a YouTube video and they were talking about how playing either version, either the Genesis or the Super NES version of Disney's Aladdin, really only takes about an hour to beat the whole game. And I've never tried to beat the whole game because it's kind of hard, and it is the old school level of difficulty, and it's not like particularly a game that you need to beat. And yeah, you can speed run things like Super Mario Brothers or Zelda, but if you're new to the game or you're just playing it casually, I think you would still take a decent amount of time to play it. Let's see. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Dead Island 2, one of THQ Nordic's 80 in development games. So we're down to what, 79 games we don't know are in development, or we don't know the name of, and one of them is Dead Island 2. That being said, them doing Dead Island 2, THQ Nordic doing it versus Techland doing Dying Light, which is the spiritual successor to Dead Island 1, doesn't really inspire a huge amount of confidence, quite frankly. Yeah, because in between Dead Island 1 and this potential Dead Island 2, you also had Dead Island Riptide, you had another Dead Island game that was bad, the remake of the Dead Island 1, which was not good enough for a remake, quite frankly. So Techland made one good game in Dead Island 1, and then there's been at least two, probably technically three, bad Dead Island games. Which is also kind of a shame, because when Dead Island 1 came out, it was Dead Island and the games from Capcom where you're running around a mall full of zombies, and they were pretty popular for a few years there, and now we're kind of out of zombie games. But there's still plenty of zombie games being made. World War Z is the latest code zombie game I would mention. But yeah, we probably need to see a resurgence to zombie games as people get away from making pirate games or space alien games.
For justice.
TechRaptor has an article here talking about the Steam Spring Cleaning event. Here is your trophy case that as it starts. Basically, they want you to play every day, and you should have been doing it up to this point. I think you probably missed out on any opportunities if you haven't started to get everything. But they want you to play one of these games every day while they're free to play, and then they give you a list of other games that are in your personal backlog. They also make you tag something, so I had never tagged any games before, so I just went to my go-to standard of tagging time clickers and gave it 3 or 4 tags, and then that let it generate a list of games similar to time clickers. That I picked one that I had already and played that. So there's like 3 games I have to launch every day to get the full badge, which I think the full badge will probably give me about 300 XP points, which is a decent amount, but not anything to be super upset if you miss it. And I doubt too many people will be even upset if they miss the whole sale in general. It probably is a great way to do a sale on a holiday weekend, is by not making it really feel mandatory. And in a small way, it clearly is just set up for the summer sale, which I'm hoping the summer sale, I don't know the exact dates for it, so I'm hoping it happens off of past E3, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the next couple of days before E3.
For justice. Give that minion's turn to get ready.
TechRaptor has an article here. Retro platformer reboot Blaster Master Zero fires on the Steam June 14th. So this Blaster Master game apparently more popular than what I thought it was going to be. So when it comes out, I'll probably put it on the follow list. I don't think I'd put it on the wish list. I probably should start to think about putting more games directly on the wish list, but it doesn't seem like it's happening very often.
For justice. Reporting for duty.
See if this game is family friendly, since it is tagged with sexual content and nudity. Alright, let's start here. So here we have another game on Steam called Welcome to the Cat House, and then a bunch of Asian letters. The animation style looks horrible. This, I assume, is a low-effort Chinese sex games, tag nudity and sexual content. Also early access, discounted for $8.99. Yeah. Not a lot that needs to be said here, other than the fact that, yes, adult games still seem like they're being allowed on Steam. Or at least some are. Like, See, and it would be really, really hard to prove that some games are getting allowed just to show that some games are being allowed, or bad games are being allowed to show that bad games are being allowed, but then good quality adult games aren't being allowed. What has been happening, and I've started noticing, is that some of the games as they're depicted on the Steam storefront look one way, particularly the adult dungeon crawlers and JRPGs. They look one way, but then from my other news sources that I don't show, they go to show what the nudity and the sexual content is, and when you see the actual CGs versus the screenshots on Steam, you see, oh, actually, instead of this game giving me the feeling that it was probably just a game that had one spa scene or one bathing scene where you might see a buttocks or the side of a boob or something, it's actually, no, the vast majority of the work of this game is in the CG scenes where you see full-on hardcore pornography, for lack of a better term, in the game, and the screenshots that you see of the little RPG Maker experience is such an afterthought and so dissimilar from the animation style and the quality of those games. So there definitely have been at least a couple of games I've put on the follow list to think about, or maybe even a few games I put on the wish list that in retrospect I probably should go back and remove, because there's kind of no way I could blur it enough for there to be any reason to cover the game at all.
For justice.
And I certainly, now that I've found this plugin that will blur the image, I will start to think about maybe there's a hotkey or something I can do in playing other games to use that to my advantage. I don't know, however, how effective that would be or how useful that would be, because quite frankly, a lot of these scenes just show up out of nowhere, or they feel like they might dance to the edge, and they might just be a scene where somebody's in their underwear and then all of a sudden they take off their underwear, and I would have had no time to hit the blur button anyways. So doing that kind of stuff in post is almost certainly the way you're going to have to do it. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Drawjin, Dungeons of Ink and Paper. This is a dungeon crawler with a pencil and paper sprite set, which the sprite set might be an interesting selling point, but then having your sides of your screen taken up at all times with items and inventory is just ugly looking. So if you were going to show me this game, that would have been cool. But this is just a trailer, and this is not how you actually play the game. This is discounted to $3.99. So English, Russian, French, and German languages. No telling what country of origin this is, but yeah, it's just not the level of quality I want. Apparently I already have played a Redemption.
The battle!
Catch! Catch!
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Dungeon Bosses, which looks like a low effort dungeon crawler roguelike style game. Extremely empty and black around the edges of a pretty standard square platform. Yep. Even if this is just a boss rush game, which it kind of feels like it is, it's just lacking a lot of polish. $2.99, English only is the language. Yeah, that's just not good enough.
Smart move. I concede.
There we go. So what's our next thing we need to do? Hero power 13 times, which we could do with the hunter, or play cards that are cost 8 or more, which probably will never get done. So let's play the hunter one more time, and I think we might be done with the stream at this point. There really was not a lot of news over the weekend, no surprise there. Tech Raptor has an article. The USC, that I assume that's the University of Southern California Games Expo, gave a glimpse into gaming's future. That is, of course, if any of these USC students get any jobs inside the games industry. It is the University of Southern California.
Begin.
So they showed off a game called Empath. Let's see what this looks like. Well, it seems like they're mostly talking about it. Now, what I would want to see from a games developer in college is not particularly a great looking game. If a game does look good, that just means the artists and the 3D modelers in that company are doing, in that college are doing pretty well. I want to see something that has a new, unique, and smooth and well-programmed play field. What I'm seeing here is a VR game where you're punching and throwing things, and it's herky-jerky in VR, which is way too ambitious. So that would be kind of what I would define as a dud. Something that's not particularly interesting, and just I'm looking for vertical slices and tech demos of gameplay concepts and programming, not particularly something that looks really good or sounds really good. Like, if it looks and sounds really good, fine, you can hire the artist and the audio engineers, but don't hire the programmers, don't hire the game developers, because that's not the part that they would have done. Vernacular Drop, the game that was the predecessor, the student project that was the predecessor to Portal 1, looked horrible, but the concept worked, and that's what Valve saw, and that's what why Valve hired the people, or most of the people, out of college to work on Portal.
Job's done.
Next, there's this game called Dominion, but this game Dominion seems to be, like everything they're showing, it's just a augmented reality Pokemon Go style game. It's not even really augmented reality, so it was just a Pokemon Go style game. That also did not look good. Next we have a game called Unami Blast. Let's come over here and play first.
Job's done.
So Unami Blast is just a match 3 cook serve delicious style game like this. So yeah, nothing there interesting either. And then the next game we have is the one game that's actually, I think, on my follow list. It's called Plasticity, and the reason why I chose it is because it looks like it's a student project that looks like an actual game. It looks like a Limbo, where you're pushing puzzles and playing and doing something complicated more than just matching 3 or playing Pokemon Go. So if that's your choice, there's Plasticity versus Unami Blast versus Domain, which was the Pokemon Go one, versus the Empath, which was the VR one. USC is not showing anything majorly impressive there. Not to be cruel or mean, but there really isn't anything knocking my socks off.
To my side. Quickly.
I don't know if you really should expect a student run or college run event or expo to show do anything like that, but it's not great. I think you'd be better off if there was a student coalition through a lot of colleges in the United States that teach video game design, and that student coalition had an expo that would show off the development of a lot of different students. That might be nice, but still it kind of needs to be a combination of something like a big expo of student-made projects and GDC, so that you could have the two people meet and two groups of people as far as potential and hopeful employees in the game industry meet people who are actually in the game industry and game developers, and have them rub elbows and potentially apply for jobs. And see, I think that in particular would be a great way to expand E3, is if there was just a whole nother hall in the E3 convention center, or wherever the E3 event happens, where students or people who wanted to be game developers who haven't even entered college are advised and get to meet with some of the recruiters and hiring teams of the video game industry, while the game devs are in the same area announcing their new games. It's probably a better use than just having people stand in line to play demos of new games. Maybe 3 or 4 demos of new games. Probably not going to get much more than that. Did I use the hero ability even once? No. Probably just better to go back to playing Paladin. TechRaptor has an article here. Bubsy Paws of Fire review. Stop making Bubsy games. I think I'm at that point too. I've heard consistently that everybody hates these Bubsy games. This is 2.5 terrible. So I don't really need to read any more of this. Yeah, I think if there's a Bubsy game in my follow list or wish list, I think I should take it out and just move on with my life. Bubsy was never a big deal anyway, so it was a bad game then, it's a bad game now. There's really not any reason to go forward in that idea.
The light protects me.
Job's done.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Avis Rapida Aerobatic Racing, if I can pronounce words right. This is flying around in jets through rings. I might have been interested in this, but there's kind of a lack of polish in the floor, in the textures.
Let me
think. It seems a little weird to be flying around in airplanes, and it also feels like this might make me motion sick the way it's being depicted. And there's a lot of herky-jerky motions happening there. It's early access, discounted to $13.49, English only. 9 achievements. So yeah, I don't see anything in this game that looks interesting enough. And frankly, I kind of expect in a flying game that there'll be a tutorial mode where you're flying through rings anyways, but then I'd also want to see some dog fighting. I'd want to see some other styles of missions and quests and goals, instead of just flying around on through rings. Let's see.
Quickly.
Next we have a game on Steam called Dark Blood, which looks like a platformer vampire. There's a lot of burning elements, burning trees being shown in the video. I guess maybe that's just one sequence. I'm not really seeing any enemies here. This might be a decent hack and slash platformer. It might not. It's $6.99 with no discount. It's full English audio according to the check mark. I'll put this on the follow list. It's pushing it certainly, but it might be good. The 8-bit graphics in particular, an element that
Got something to hide?
makes it hard to tell for certain whether a game is worth it or not.
Quickly.
Next we have a game on Steam called Music of the Spheres, which just looks like it's a bunch of like artistic tile sets, tile arrangements. Mosaic, that's the word I'm looking for. Looks like mosaics. It's $2.99, bunch of languages it says it supports, but I see no game at all. It's like, so I don't know what you're manipulating or what you would want to play.
Let me think.
A puzzle game about bouncing bullets, isometric art and sound. Yeah, this does not look interesting to me as a game. Yeah.
I wonder.
I fight.
I gotta start using the hero. I'm not using the hero ability, that's the only thing I needed to be using. TechRaptor has an article here. Chex Quest 3 released for free for reasons we've yet to understand. Chex Quest being a fan sequel to a serial giveaway game. Yeah. Let's see.
Let me think.
Yeah, it's kind of non-relevant, quite frankly. It's just ridiculous.
Show me.
Take this one down and then drag this out.
Quickly.
We only have about 4 more things to talk about, and then I'm out of news. Next we have a game on Steam called Omni Footman, which looks like a dungeon crawler. Doesn't look any better than any of the other dungeon crawlers out there. Looks kind of good actually, but I don't really want to play a game that looks like this, quite frankly. And I think that's another thing, is that there will just be categories of dungeon crawlers or categories of some games that I'm just going to say no to. This is also $15.99 and it's English and Chinese. It's asking quite a high price
Follow the rules.
for... I shouldn't have done that because I'm going to run out
Reporting
of...
for duty. To battle.
I'm gonna run out of space. I need to kill things
Quickly.
so I have more room. Next we have a game on Steam called Xera, Xera Survival, which there's Xera, the animation was a very, very old anime, one of the first ones I ever watched. aired on the Sci-Fi Channel for the brief time that the Sci-Fi Channel was showing anime movies or OAVs as movies. This was rated mostly positive, but I don't see anything here. It's $19.99. It's multiplayer only MMO, so I can ignore it because of that reason. But yeah, this just looks like a Division game for slightly cheaper.
Reporting for duty. To battle!
There we go.
My time moves quickly.
And that actually brings me to the Humble Bundle. So I had less pages than I even thought. So I'll look at the Humble Bundle to see if there's any new bundles, and surprisingly to no one, I'm sure there aren't. Because why would you bring out a new bundle on Memorial Day? Or this weekend in particular. Alright, so I would need to do 10 more hero power things. So I guess I'm just gonna have to play that off screen and do that, because I don't see a real reason to try to jump into the game and do 10 more things. See, talk about this article. I'm just scrolling down my Twitter feed at this point, and I've been skipping games, so again, anything that looks like just an extremely low effort game, I'm trying to skip it, because there's just like no reason usually to even mention it. Shenmue 3 has been rated in Australia, which usually means Ghostbusters, the video game remastered, has been rated on Australia, published by Mad Dog Games and developed by Saber Interactive. Let's see, there's another article we could talk about on the game. Just scrolling down here. I really only probably have about 14 more, or 14 updates in the 2 hours that we've been streaming. Or this, yeah, it's really barely been 3 hours. It's been less than that. Yep, and so that is that. So I could show off this article. Quake 2 RTX brings ray tracing to Quake next month. I'm not even sure I really want to buy a GeForce RTX graphics card for my next graphics card, frankly, at this point, because it looks like ray tracing, if it's going to be implemented, is all going to be implemented in software, and the RTX graphic cards as a first generation thing will probably have to use their drivers to force the software rendering to use hardware rendering, which probably won't work for most games. And so I think ray tracing might be a little too early and a little dead in the water. And then the only other thing we had is this Adventures of the Foreseen Hobo Knight. I just wanted to look at this and make sure that this was an extremely low effort game, and yeah, it does look like it's just not visually polished enough to interest me. So that's $6.99 English. It has a Pepe meme, which I'm pretty sure Steam already said that Pepe achievements and things like that are not acceptable, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is completely removed as a game for that reason alone. And then Gamatsu has an article here. Arcade Epic 1980X launches June 20th for the PS4 and PC, and soon for the Xbox One and Switch. This, I think, is a hack and slash arcade game that may or may not have actually come out before. Let's see. Yeah, it's actually a side shooter. Or what is this? Is it just a combination of arcade games? I think it is. Well, that would be interesting to see how that's implemented. So yeah, that's something to be slightly looking forward to. So that's gonna be it for the streaming. I'm just gonna say no promises. I might stream later this evening. I might start streaming like really late this evening, around midnight or later. Or I might just choose to do nothing for the rest of the day and go back to sleep. I started early, and it's just been a lazy holiday weekend, Monday, Memorial Day type experience. So yeah, that's going to be it for this stream and this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.